Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Friday morning, political fighters, and welcome to the July 17th, 2026 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278 is the number. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and you can always email me, of course, at richard@wcpt.com. Follow me on all the socials under Choose Views. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. There you can get Choose Views, featured interviews, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. The great Patty Vasquez, Driving It Home. It's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath. And obviously the weekend is right upon us, so all of our great weekend shows out Chicago and all the rest. Family meeting, everything. You can catch all that good stuff just by tuning in. And also in the evenings, the Politics Bar, Matt McNeil's show, and the Gailey Show. And the regular commentary starting off each morning is our great work over at heartlandsignal.com. Attorney Todd Blanche, great piece there. Todd Blanche and the very subpar answers that he gave during testimony and all the rest. So you can catch that there. Make sure you're making your way over. And also a conversation from, a post from the conversation with Jay Clayton. And then Trump is backing Mike Lindell for the governor's race in Minnesota. And apparently he, once again, messed that up. So, there you go. The great place to be. Heartlandsignal.com. Let's make sure we turn off all of our peripheral devices. There we go. Today's show, we are running fast and hard today. With us very quickly in the 6:15 hour is Jane Ruby. She is one of the executives and leaders with the organization, the Chicago Voting Rights Advocates, that's honoring John Lewis, the late John Lewis, with the candlelight vigil and weekend in action as part of the League of Women Voters here in Chicago, and also tied into and working with Operation Push. So all those organizations are coming together, and they've got an event this weekend, and we're going to have a little bit of time to chat with her after this first break. So stay tuned for that. And then we have our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast that'll be with us in the 6:30 hour. Representative Will Guzzardi will be with us in the 7 o'clock hour. We're going to talk a little bit about some local politics and how they are aligned with some of the national issues. And then Danielle Butterfield, not Danielle, got to change the emphasis there, Henry. Butterfield, President and Executive Director of Priorities USA. Talk a little bit about how we are, the opportunities that we have as a party to ramp up and sustain our digital footprint when it comes to politics and messaging. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. Get your notebooks out, be ready, take some notes, grab some thoughts, and be able to share them with the people that you care about in this fight that we are in. Earlier in the week, the question of the day is one that I told you I would come back to today because I wanted to kind of arm you for the weekend, or have you be armed for the weekend is maybe a better way of putting it. But I'll arm you. I'm an arms dealer. I got a truck of armaments out in the back parking lot. I'll hook you up. Henry will make sure you get the delivery. I'll make sure we make the sale, and Maddie B will make sure that you know how to operate the thing. So we got the full team going here. But we want to make sure you guys are as empowered as possible. And I asked the question earlier in the week: if you had the power to instantly reallocate the federal budget, which current priority would receive less funding, and which would receive more? I asked that question earlier in the week, and I said I would ask it again because I wanted you guys to have that to be thinking about going into the weekend. And when you're talking with people, is a good question. That's a question that when you're talking with the folks in your world, you can ask them that question. That's one that you can get them to own. And I mean folks that are, quote unquote, on our side or in our tent, and folks that may not be. particularly those that may not be. But some that are kind of on the fence too, Henry. Like, there's maybe still in the undecided, camp. Like, and maybe you got some people in your world that didn't vote in 2024 or haven't voted in other elections. But when we talk about the federal budget, give them something to think about. What would you reallocate? What would you do differently? And I think that's a tool to help them get involved in the process. And we're going to try to keep doing more of that, is find ways to give you guys tools to go to the people that you work with, that you live with, that you have in your world, whatever the definition is, with something that they can actually be thinking about. Like, okay, you got the checkbook. What are you changing up to better the country? So if you had the power to instantly reallocate the federal budget, which current priority would receive less funding and which would receive more? You guys can chime in on that by sending a text here to 773-763-9278. You can call in today and we'll try to squeeze you in, as we always try to do, or go to our Facebook page and leave your comments there. Those are always good to have, and we appreciate your work in that space. So there's your question of the day. You know who's going to be hanging out with us this morning, so we want to make sure that we give enough time to make that happen this morning. Of course, on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan will be taking your calls and talking to Chris Fitzsimmons, host of the Stories from the States podcast. Jack Curley, Director of Government Relations at the Planetary Society, and Mark Kelly Smith, Chicago poet. He'll talk about the Newberry Library's acquisition of the Mark Kelly Smith Poet Slam collection. That's pretty cool. So Live, Local, and Progressive, of course, with our great Joan Esposito, weekdays 2 to 5 here on WCPT, heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. So make sure you check out Joan later today. All right. I think that's it. Let's take a quick break, Henry, so we've got ourselves in order when we come back. The number is 773-763-9278. You are listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, as well as AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. If you are just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu. Thanks for being with us on this Friday morning, July 17th. How about that? We got to the end of another week, and now we start the weekend. Listen, everybody, if you are in Chicago or if you're in the upper Midwest, be careful, be smart in terms of being out. If you have to be out, maybe carry a mask and have it on. If you're going to be out for sustained periods of time and you're moving around, if you're walking, whatever, just throw a mask in your pocket and have it just as a backup. You may not feel you need it, but take it with you. So please be safe. That's common sense to keep you out of good trouble. As John Lewis would have said, use your common sense, y'all. Make good decisions based on common sense while you're getting into some good trouble. I'm saying that as a lead in to our first guest this morning. Jane Ruby is with us as part of the League of Women Voters of Chicago. Going to talk a little bit about this candlelight vigil that they have put together along with Operation Push and the Candlelight Vigil and Weekend of Action. Good morning, Jane, and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Did I do that okay, Jane?
Yes, that was a perfect introduction, and thank you for the reminder regarding the kind of apocalyptic and very strange weather we're having. We definitely want our event is outside this evening, and we definitely want to make sure everyone is staying safe and is masking up for it.
Yeah, if you're going to be at the event, make sure you got an extra bottle of water, one for you and one for somebody else who may not have brought one, or in the event that you have an issue with breathing, you got to throw some on your face, whatever the case may be. Just take an extra bottle of water with you if you're going to be at the event or if you're going to be out and about, period. This is not the time to be messing around with that. And I do say, never met him, but just knowing how he rolled, John Lewis would have probably said, use some sense, y'all. He's been through a few marches in his lifetime, or he had been through a few marches in his lifetime, so use some sense. But be forceful. Tell us a little bit, Jane, about the event, how it came about, and then, about who will be some of the participants and maybe some of the speakers and whatnot that'll be there.
Yeah, so this is the 6th anniversary of Congressman John Lewis's passing, and we, in honor of him and sort of the legacy and work, it has always been sort of a action focused vigil. We're not looking necessarily towards the past, we're looking to honor the past, but it is very much about what can we be doing now as people, over the past 6 years in his honor to ensure that we are moving the ball forward. I think that there is sort of a mass problem around civic engagement that we sort of have as a nation, have as a city, have as a society. And really it is sort of about, we can't just keep doom scrolling. We can't just keep sort of, thinking about what was or what could have been. We have to sort of take the immediacy into our own hands and make that better future that we all desperately want to see happening. And I think that that's really part of that legacy and honoring of Congressman Lewis. And so, we sort of do a traditional vigil. We have candles for people. It is very much about sort of, honoring him, but then it's like, okay, what are we going to do now? So this year, in addition to doing sort of the event that, is more traditional with speakers and people that come out to pay tribute, we are also doing a weekend of voter registration efforts around the city. So our partners at Rainbow Push Coalition, Indivisible, League of Women Voters are going to have voter registration people out around the city. So, be sure to check out. We're going to be blitzing the city with voter registration efforts as a way to kind of get the ball moving towards the November election, towards the next municipal election. It's all hands on deck. And we also need to sort of be looking both at local, state, and national ways that we can engage. And one of the biggest sort of ways to honor John Lewis also is passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And that has been a piece of legislation that our organizations have been pushing for nationally to not only reaffirm commitment to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, but also expand on what that looks like. And with such devastating Supreme Court decisions as Louisiana versus Calais and such, it is more important than ever to ensure that we are also building out that momentum and building out infrastructure legislatively, nationally, and state and locally to ensure that voting rights are protected.
So what does it, I guess, look like is the best word I'm going to use right now, as it relates to the act being put in place? I mean, we don't have the congressional numbers and certainly the will from the Congress members on the right, if you will, to do this, and they're being blocked by financial powers, frankly, that don't want to see it happen in terms of the big money in politics. But what's your, I think I shouldn't make a joke of it, but what's your air test of what you're seeing and hearing right now?
Yeah, I think that there's been a school of thought for a long time that it's like, oh, we're so safe in Illinois. Oh, we're so, whatever. Oh, we have great people, whatever. And I think if anything, the moment that we're in right now really shows that it's all hands on deck, no matter how great you think anyone is, no matter how great that, people are out there doing the work and our legislators, how much you like them as people, we still need to hold everybody accountable and ensure that they're working for the people and not working for the special interests. I think money in politics is such a huge problem. It basically controls how we're able to pass any piece of legislation right now. And it's really, and Congressman Lewis would, definitely echo the sentiment. It's really about we as people, and that's, all of us are accountable for this, whether you vote in every election or you don't vote in every election. All of us are accountable collectively to show that the power of the people is stronger than the powerful interests that seem to control and dominate things. And that's sort of what about actions like this vigil tonight, voter registration drives, what the work of our grassroots organizations are doing here in Chicago and nationally to reclaim that political power that for generations people have been willing to sort of allow chip away for a variety of reasons. It's the most common thing is just sort of like, hey, there's other people that have more power than you, and a lot of people are just like, okay, I'm just trying to feed my family. I'm just trying to take care of my own home and find happiness and peace in this world. Like, if you're telling me I don't have power, oh, okay. And it's really about, no, everything we do is a political act. Everything that we encounter in our lives can be tied back to politics, can be tied back to the way that legislators legislate, the way that laws are created. And so it's really just about the reframe and to ensure that people know what their power is. Like, I mean, we hear all the time, like, Citizens United, we can't do anything with Citizens United. Well, we have a piece of legislation in City Council that was introduced 2 years ago that is a way to combat big money into local elections. And we should be passing the Fair Elections Ordinance, which is a campaign finance reform initiative, and it's been sitting in City Council for 2 years. There are actionable things at every tier of government we can be doing to combat the special interests, combat the money in politics, combat the people who are telling us we do not have the political power that we think we do.
Yeah.
Um, and that is sort of the activation that I'm fighting for every day with the League of Women Voters. In our 100-year history, my ancestors were doing the same fight. Our partners, both nationally and locally, for this vigil in honor of John Lewis, what John Lewis spent his whole life fighting on. We are all in this together.
It's interesting, Jane. I think about this locally, but then folks that we reach nationally. It's an issue in every community, and if there's a bill sitting, a legislation sitting in City Council, I put that in the lap of our alders here in Chicago, because they're the ones that should get that through, because it's voting for, it's making sure that if we're going to be the city that we say we are, then they are ones that should be helping to advance this kind of opportunity for the citizens in the community. That's a broader conversation for the state and for the nation. We know that we've got bigger blocks in some cases on a federal level, and the person that sits in the White House right now is creating more and more disconnect from the importance of voting and trying to create more havoc based on. I didn't watch the speech last night, and I'll watch clips of it, but again, it's just to keep people away from what I say not only is a civic responsibility, but a civic duty, or certainly something that people should view that way. And I know that you guys have been working really hard to make sure that these things happen on all levels, whether they be local, state, or national. I have a question that I know you have an answer to in the little bit of time that we have left, but what do we do to make sure that 89 million people that didn't vote in the national election, or roughly 89 million people that didn't vote, because some of them are probably right here in Chicago, just to be honest with ourselves about it. But they're folks from all over the country. It's not just in certain communities. What would be your thing if you said, Richard, if I said you only have one answer, but you have 10, but give us your best. This is the thing that we need to do to help that 89 plus million people say, yeah, I do need to take responsibility here.
Yeah, I will quote Miss Betty Magnus, political director of Rainbow Push Coalition, one of my mentors. We were doing a voter registration training session at Push a few days ago, and someone asked this question, and Miss Betty said, if the person is like, why should I care about this? You just respond, what's your grocery bill look like? What's your gas bill look like? Do your kids feel safe going to school? Do you feel like your property taxes are too high? Like there's really short answers to why people should care, why people should engage, why people should get out and vote, but there's no one size fits all. It's really about it's going to take person to person having those individualized connections with your family, your neighbors, um, getting what is that thing that's going to click for people. I grew up, in a household where my parents took me to go vote with them, and I would flip the little switches and, move the crank. This was, before digital stuff, and I thought it was so cool. I was like, I voted. This is so cool. I tell everyone I voted. My parents took my son to the booth with them last month to go vote in the New York City primary. Like those are the things that, we all should be doing with young people to feel like they're included in the process. But for everyone, it clicks differently. I had plenty of friends when we all turned 18, and I was excited to register to vote, and no one else wanted to do it. And I was like, what do you mean? It's the coolest thing ever. And they were like, we don't want to get called for jury duty. We don't want to get the, campaign mailers and mail. It really varied. And through the years, I've had so many of those same people that we all turned 18. We all, they all thought I was crazy with how excited I was to vote and register to vote. And they've come to me and been like, you were right. These things matter. And so people find the thing that clicks for them at different times. And what we can be doing, not just as organizations in the space, but everyone who's on the call, everyone in our communities, we just need to help people find what clicks for them and
making it personal.
Empathy and compassion, and understand that even if someone might not arrive at that moment at the same time you do, they will get there, and it will be even more powerful when we have more people a part of this movement together. So that's the short and long answer.
That's okay. I've been there many times. I know exactly how you feel. Betty, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Betty because of her leadership, but Jane, it's making it personal. That's what I wrote down. Make it personal, a personal question. I like that, and I'm going to use that to help our listeners all over the country. How can folks find you? How can they last second get involved in the weekend events?
Yes, so join us. We're going to be this evening right across from Buckingham Fountain in downtown Chicago. The vigil will start at 6:30, and so it's the east side of DuSable Lakeshore Drive across from the fountain is where we'll be. We'll have signs. There'll be lots of people there. So come and join us. Also check out Mobilize. If you're not in Chicago, there's some other Good Trouble vigils that are happening around the state and nationally. And also make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure your family and friends are registered to vote, and everyone has a plan to get out and vote in November and also next February in our Chicago municipal elections.
Got it. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. I know it was quick, but check out Jane Ruby and the work that they're doing with the League of Women Voters in Chicago. Thanks for being with us, Jane. We'll talk with you soon. Have a great rest of the day and a good weekend. Stay safe. All right, guys, quick break. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, AM 950 in Minnesota. That's the Progressive Voice. And of course, down in Warren County in North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back. Guys, welcome back to Choose Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu, and it's 6:30 on Friday, and you know what's about to happen. But I got to read this quick text that I think you'll appreciate. How ironic that the guy who was convicted of 34 felony counts for withholding business documents from the electorate to rig the 2016 presidential election and on January 6, 2021, was the voice of a failed insurrection to overturn a free and fair presidential election in 2020. Think that he has any moral authority to lecture the American people about election integrity? That comes from our good friend Kurt Herner from Akron, Ohio. Boy, I mean, that's talk about putting your thumb right on it. That's what we're talking about. And we're going to just hand the baton off to our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast. Good morning, Karen. When you have nothing to offer is the title of one of her latest Substack articles. And I thought it would be a great lead in to what Kurt just sent us. Man, oh man, talk about the pot calling the kettle something else.
Oh, yeah. No, and as we speak, Richard, I just want to remind everybody that the Epstein files remain unreleased.
Mm-hmm. And what about and Karen? This is what's been tripping me out. We've almost forgotten, not forgotten, but almost forgotten all all those boxes that left the White House and went down to Mar-a-Lago.
Mar-a-Lago, and they were sitting in his bathroom.
Yeah,
they were in ballroom.
But yet, this punk's going to try to lecture the United States on integrity, let alone whether it be any election integrity or any category. I didn't watch any of it by design. I just said I'm not going to even frustrate myself in that space.
It's more of the okey doke and deflection and projection and all the rest of it. And it was interesting though, Richard. I saw this morning because I did not watch it either, but I did tune in to Lawrence O'Donnell. But of course, people were out on social media reacting to it, and so Brian Krasenstein on Twitter, actually, some of the documents that they released, actually, he told on himself.
He can't help himself. It's he can't help himself. It's like Reverend Al Sharpton does that whole thing about the blueberry pie. Donald cannot not tell that he messed up or that he did something, that he was a part. It's maniacal, Karen.
Do you remember? I mean, do you remember the Mueller report? This is what this says. If I can just read the first sentence here. President Putin and senior Russian officials are overseeing efforts by proxies, redacted, to spread claims about former Vice President Biden as well as Ukrainian politicians and alleged Ukrainian influence in the 2016 U.S. election. It goes on and talks about how U.S. officials and other prominent persons were helping online spread lies about President Biden in the lead into the 2020 election.
And yes, there's just so much. There's just so much, and that's why I love it. That's the title of your one of your Substack articles from When You Have Nothing to Offer is the title of it, and basically what it essentially says is it's Karen's work with Anita in their work on Substack and Resistance Journal, but it's basically saying what Karen just talked about. Tomorrow, she posted it yesterday. Or day before yesterday, tomorrow night, Trump says that he has a big announcement regarding election security. We have no reason to be concerned about what he plans to announce. He's a pathological liar who, along with his army of sycophants and folks in the mainstream media and in power, push conspiracies that have been, and here's the key part, proven wrong. They have been proven wrong. And there, 60 plus cases, lawsuits, and only one of them came back with anything that was floatable, that wasn't a turd.
Right.
That was, and it turned, and isn't that the one that turned out that it was somebody that was a Republican voter?
Yeah. It was completely, so it just had no, look, when there has been anything looked into, there's always evidence. When we talk about the Mueller report, there was evidence. And I watched this interview with Jon Stewart and Jack Smith, and they don't move forward with anything unless they have the evidence. Because if you do not have the evidence, it's going to be thrown out in courts when So with Donald Trump, there was no evidence that the 2020 election was stolen, but he nevertheless, because he knows that as long as he is the loudest voice in the room, it's going to gain some traction with the idiots that still believe in him and listen to him. But with everybody else, we rely on evidence. And so, some of the things that, they in the lead-in too, they were saying, and as far as what he was going to try, anything that he tries is going to be challenged in court.
Yep.
There is no legitimacy to these claims. And so we just all have to take a deep breath. And it's hard in Chicago, and I know all over the country, to take a big, deep breath right now because of all the smoke from the wildfires. Thank you, climate change.
What's that called? What'd you say about the
There
climate?
would be climate change, global warming. Yeah.
That actually exists? Where?
Yeah. It does, Richard. There's evidence.
How come I not heard of that, madam? Global. Did you leave the pot boiling too long, Karen? Is that the global warming you're talking about?
It's the global warming. It's not a hoax. Yeah.
So right now, Mayor, thank you, Mayor Johnson, for doing the press thing that he did about everybody wearing masks, and we all should be right now being smart, not being foolish, because we just need to be. But here's the thing. We can't blame Canada necessarily, or blame anybody other than the fact that this is a reality, and the part that's a struggle is we have politicians in a federal role who are in denial. They're not even in denial. That's not denial. They know that it exists. See, that's a different. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'll say it this way, and you can walk me through it. They're not in. They're just saying it's not that way, but they know that it is. They know that we have these issues when it comes to climate and global warming, but they don't want to. They don't want to do anything about it, because if they do anything, if they acknowledge it, then they will have to do something about it.
Well, it would really piss off their fossil fuel donors and lobbyists. I mean that
check's not going to clear at that point.
No, that's what it's all about. It's always been about that, right? We know that, and they know that. So, if only we had stayed in the Paris Accord. That was another, dumb thing that he did the first time around.
Did you see he posted, or I think it was on Truth Social. I don't want to get it wrong, but just that he was in the world again of blaming President Obama for the Iran issue, because he said that the deal that President Obama had with Iran was the reason that we have this problem now. No. Last time I checked, Barack Obama made it clear he was going to do everything possible to not take us to an incursion, to a war, to a military involvement, whatever the words are that these dumb Republicans want to use. And let's find a way to prevent us from being in that space. But Donald Trump once again had to blame Barack Obama for something that he, meaning Trump, could not get done. The only thing that Donald Trump is better at than Barack Obama is, you know what it is? Okay, that's number 2. I was going to say impregnating women that he's not married to. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. Oh, yeah, there's so many things. There's so many things. Cheating.
Lying.
He's
a better liar. He's a bigger liar.
Being adultering.
He's a better stealer of documents.
He's a better, yes.
Yeah, I know.
And then Barack Obama did none of that, right?
Had to take a sip of coffee, Karen.
I know. No, it's maddening. I mean, you feel like you're taking crazy pills most days, and then it just, last night, I think that he was hoping for something different. I don't think he got what he wanted. The major networks, aside from their streaming platforms, did not air it.
And there now you got some people out there, I'm sure you saw this, that were saying that those outlets that didn't air, I guess it was ABC and NBC that didn't air it, should have their FCC licenses pulled. Excuse me?
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. And that's just, so when I've said, and you've said it too, and many of us have said it, none of us own this, but when I've made the statement that This is not just on Donald Trump. It's on all of the GOP. This is what I mean, because it just goes to show how much they're cooked into this as well. This is coming from folks like Nancy Mace and other elected officials, not just folks that are loud on social media. This is coming from elected Republicans and other voices on the Republican in their tent that were saying pull their FCC licenses. Really?
Yeah, right.
Y'all are in this.
Yeah, no, and I mean, Ron Wyden was on with Lawrence O'Donnell afterwards, because that was the only way I was going to get any of the information about what he said, or was, to listen to Lawrence, because Lawrence has such a way of just speaking truthfully and just unabashedly about Donald Trump and who he is. And I just love the way he, basically calls him a loser. And weak, and all of the things that he is. So Ron Wyden was on, and he just said he was imploring his Republican colleagues, to come out. This is dangerous. This is extremely dangerous, what he's trying to do. And of course, we know that the main push for this was to try and sell the SAVE Act and demand, put the message out that we must, pass the SAVE Act, which has no chance of passing. They need 60 votes, and they don't have them in the Senate. So, but he was imploring them, please, what are you doing? This is the time. You cannot be silent about this. This is extremely dangerous. This is what our forefathers warned us about. They wanted to protect us from having despots come in and take over our democracy and turn it into an autocracy. Anytime now, Republicans, because this is not 100% on them.
Yes, it is.
If they stood up, we wouldn't be here. If they had stood up and convicted him after the second impeachment, we wouldn't be here.
They wouldn't. And that's the crazy thing about it before we go to this break, Karen. They wouldn't be here either. So let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You are listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, as well as our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. This is Choose Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu, and we've got our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast and Resistance Journal on Substack with us. Hey, Karen, we're going to grab a quick call. One of our folks is on the line. Let's go to Professor Andre from the South Side of Chicago. Good morning, Andre. Welcome to the show. We got you on with Karen. How about that?
Hey, good morning to you, Mr. Chu. Good morning to you, Ms. Karen. Thank you all for having me. Thank you, Ms. Karen. Yeah, thank you. So this is what I want to say. I watched the speech last night, but I'm going to tell you how I feel like we got to this point. And I've been advocating for outlawing the polls like 3 months out before an election, because this is what happened. Some of those states had Donald Trump leading, and those polls is what caused the insurrection, and the polls was caused Donald Trump to behave the way he did because he actually thought that he was winning. So those polls is responsible for that. Those people got angry because the polls showed them winning. Remember, they said it was going to be a red wave, and it wasn't. Again, the polls was wrong. It wasn't a red wave. So, it might not go through, but I'm advocating for 6 months out. 3 months out before an election, ban the polls, because now people are gambling on elections and everything else. They're gambling. They're doing a lot of things. So how do we know that these polls are accurate and stuff? So that's what I want to say. This is how we got here. That guy, Trump, actually thought that he won because some of the polls had him leading. I don't buy it, but that's my take on it really about this.
Yeah, I think you touched. Yeah, I think that's a great point. I kind of feel, though, Andre, like it's a chicken and egg kind of scenario, because what came first, them pushing out the narrative that there was going to be a red wave, because there were a lot of influencers on social media that were pushing that narrative. And so I always say that the polls reflect the information that people are getting. And so in the absence of our mainstream media putting out accurate information, reporting, not sitting there saying like, oh, well, the economy's great, but why aren't people feeling it? Their lazy journalism, I think, contributes to it. And then you combine that with all of the noise online from these influencers, and like they have foreign help, right? And so they push this stuff out there. What they're doing is they're micro-targeting all of us on the left to try and pit us racially, trying to pit us against each other. The Hillary Bernie factions, the DSA versus quote unquote establishment factions, and then in conjunction with that, doing all that work over there, then they also are very active in pushing out the red wave narrative. So then that also influences how these people feel going into it. And so it is easier then to push that narrative that it was a stolen election.
Plus, I think adding to that, Karen and Andre, the conversation, you got to remember, we were in the midst of COVID. And so a big part of this was how big would the mail-in voting and early voting impact the election because of where we were with COVID. And I think that all of that mixed in to what you were saying, Andre, in terms of the polls got it wrong. They've gotten it wrong. Frankly, they've gotten it wrong the last three national elections. If you really get down to it, they've gotten it wrong. The pollsters got it wrong. So I don't disagree with you. I think there's some room to be like, let's back off the polling at a certain point before a national election, because it does have a sort of a weird subliminal effect on people to think, oh, it's going to go this way. And what may then happen, because if you think about 2016, there was a lot of polling that this is in the bag for Hillary, and they were wrong. So you're on to something, Professor Andre, that maybe at a certain point, no more polls can be part of the process. I don't know how we get it done, but it's certainly something to think about.
Right. And when Kamala Harris lost, there was a lot of depression, a lot of sadness when she lost, because people actually felt that she was going to win. Yep. So I'm just saying, across the board, those polls have a negative effect on things. If they're going to be adamant about the polls, then say, okay, after the election is over with, then you can put out what the polls reflected then.
That's actually brilliant.
Yeah. If you're doing it right up until that time, then people gonna get angry. And I just think that Trump was misled. He actually thought that he had won that thing because those polls reflected it, and those insurrectionists they thought they felt cheated because of those polls. Yeah. So I don't want to take up all of the guest time, but I just wanted to add that to the
you're good.
Thanks, Andre. Appreciate it.
Talking to you, Andre.
All right. Hey, man, listen, you're here in Chicago, so be safe. Get your mask on, extra bottle of water, like I said earlier. But thanks for your call and contribution as always, Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Chu, and your young lady. I forget her name, but you all have a good day as well.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. How about that, Karen? You got the young lady designation.
Oh my God! I was just gonna say, thank you, Andre.
You're blushing
young
now
lady. Oh my goodness!
I can feel it in your smile. You're blushing. Got that young lady.
I'm gonna take that all the way through the weekend.
That's right. Andre's one of those old school brothers. He's like, he's gonna respect all of us, but he's gonna give an extra little push for the women in our lives. So kudos to him.
He's gonna lie. He knows better.
What's great about his take on things is he always does bring a good perspective on stuff. Hey, how you feeling if we grab another quick call? You good for that?
Sure.
All right, let's
absolutely.
do it.
I love it.
Let's go to Al in Franklin Park. Hey, Al, wanted to try to squeeze you in real quick before we get to the top of the hour. What's going on?
Hi. Good to talk to you. Well, you already talked about Lawrence O'Donnell, and one of the people he had on was Jim Hines as well. And they're talking about the long game and how what Trump is doing now is setting things up for when when they lose, because they're going to lose if they don't cheat the election coming up. And so that's one point. And then, of course, I do the ridiculous thing about putting on 5:60 a.m. this morning, and they're all praising Trump's speech already this morning.
I know it's a good thing to hear what's going on the other side, but man, don't go outside and take a big old deep breath of air right now. That's just like, why would you? You got more sense than that, Al.
Yeah, that's right. But we got to really be paying attention, and they're just crazy, and how our Trump is so good on taking on these big projects, and he's building a border wall for us. He's taking on well, I'm sorry, I'm losing a little bit, but lots of stuff there, and that was mainly what I was gonna say right now. Is we got to really be paying attention to the media. I'll look forward to what your media guy says at the 7:30 hour.
You got it. All right, Al. Thanks for the call and the contribution. Have a great day and stay safe this weekend.
Will do.
Well, they're swimming in the pools of delusion over there. That's for sure. Look, you have to. They have to be, marinating in that stuff and bathing in that stuff, because they're, before it was about the prices for them, right? Before it was, we don't want to get into any, forever wars. It was all of these other things, and now they're like, hey, wait a minute, we're paying more at the gas pump. Wait, we're paying more at the grocery store. Prices are going up. They're not going down. And now he was only supposed to hurt those people.
Yep. Well, no, I hear you.
That's not going to change. That is not going to change. So
No.
I don't need to go. And Al, my gosh, I appreciate Al, putting himself, in that line of fire. But geez, dude, do yourself a favor. We know what they're saying over there. Those are not the people that we need to talk to.
Yeah.
Those are not the people that we need to listen to and talk to. The people that we need to listen to and talk to are the people that didn't vote. The people that. Yeah, right. So.
Karen, one of the things that I've said before, I learned this way back in the day when I was a lifeguard, that you save the people that are closest to you. If a boat tips over, don't try to save the one that's screaming the loudest, that's the furthest away, because you'll end up going past the people that are more easily savable, that can actually help you save more people. And it stayed with me. That I learned that when I was 16 years old. It stayed with me to this day. And that's kind of how, and I've said it before on this show, that's the thing I think we have to kind of embrace right now, continually, when it comes to growing the party, getting the party back in the right order, getting those voters off the bench, is making sure that we're saving the ones that are closest to us one by one. You talk about it a lot. Michelle Peltier talks about it a lot in terms of one person at a time. And here's the thing, if all of us are saving one person at a time, look at what we got. It's pretty badass when we do it that way, don't you think?
Absolutely, and kudos to the young lady that was on from the League of Women's Voters. I have a very similar story. Oh, and I just want to say something she said about her friends, saying that they didn't want to be called for jury duty, so they didn't want to register. No connection at all.
Yeah.
They can use that, but they use, if you have a state ID or a driver's license, you can be called for jury duty. And
Exactly.
It's fun, so do it. Don't
You'll
shy
learn
away from
something.
jury duty.
You learn something.
Absolutely. But anyway, thank you. It was great being on, and kudos to I wish I could go down for the vigil tonight, but I cannot.
You do your part in so many ways, and I thought about you yesterday when they were talking about Broadview and some other things that are going on. So thanks for hanging out this morning. Stay safe, and I know you got all the things that you're normally doing, but great articles this week. And by the way, check out Karen's Resistance Journal, because she also dropped a nice one on Lady G. And I think you guys can figure out who Lady G is. Might be someone that unfortunately passed away, but was destructive as hell in the last decade of his life. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and just to let you know, those are videos attached to those little blurbs that I put out.
Yep.
So we're doing our TBP dailies on YouTube, and then I put them on Substack as well.
Cool. Got to go. Have a great weekend.
Love
Stay safe. Love you back. All right. Good talking to Karen as always. Thanks to Andre, and thanks to Al for giving us a shout. Glad we could get you guys on. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and 1520 AM and 103.5 FM with our good friends down at WARR in Warren County, North Carolina, and our other friends. We got friends all over the place, Henry. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. When we come back, local politics, Representative Will Guzzardi will be with us. We'll be right back.
Richard Chu's got his eyes on the truth, and you're right where you need to be. This is Chu's Views.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show today. Live, local, progressive. Joan will be taking your calls and talking to Chris Fitzsimmons, host of the Stories from the States podcast, Jack Curley, director of government relations at the Planetary Society, and Mark Kelly Smith, Chicago poet. He'll talk about the Newberry Library's acquisition of Mark Kelly Smith's Poetry Slam collection. That's Joan Esposito. 2 to 5 here on WCPT, and 5 to 7 is Patty Vasquez driving it home. We'll be joined by Matt McNeil, host of the Matt McNeil Show, weekdays 9 p.m. here on WCPT. Plus Lonnie of Indivisible, Skokie, Morton Grove will join Patty to talk about the upcoming vigil for ICE victims. That's Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. Weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Tomorrow, it's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath. His guest, Bill Scheer, politics editor of Washington Monthly. Isha Penducker will be with him as well. Senior reporter for the Maine Morning Star, Ben Wickler, former chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party. And David Neer, publisher of The Down Ballot. Sundays, Scott and Ellen will be hanging out from 11 until 1 Central. So make sure you're part of their Sunday brunch and be one of their best gay friends. There you go. And I'll tell you about what's happening on Chu's Views for next week in a little bit. But right now, speaking of local stuff, local politics, folks here in Illinois that get it done. I would add what Governor Gretchen Whitmer says, but I don't want to get in any trouble. But there's a little bit of a snarky sarcasm curse word in there. State Representative Will Guzzardi is back with us from the 39th District here in the city of Chicago, but representing the state of Illinois. Representative Guzzardi, welcome back to Chu's Views.
Thank you so much for having me, Richard.
Good to see you. I'm glad you've been busy. You've been really busy. Yes, and I have to ask you this question: were you in the audience at the tax forum in Detroit?
Yes, the Fair Tax Summit. Yeah. I saw the panel that you hosted. It was terrific.
I thought that was you, and I didn't want to completely fanboy out and wave from the stage. Hey, how you doing?
Well, it was a great conversation and a great, fantastic, very exciting conference, and great to be in the presence of folks from all over the country who are thinking about how to make our tax system better and more fair.
They really, that was a well-organized event. Kristen Kroll is one of our guests and part of, she's actually on the bus right now, the Families Over Billionaires bus that's running around the country. She did that last year, which was just phenomenal. So they're getting it done. I mean, or at least they're out there making sure with a big effort that people are aware. And you've leaned into this as well, Representative. You have made it clear that, we've got a lot of things that we got to deal with, our state budget, investments. Talk about what in a positive way, what's taken up your time or what you're focused on right now for the folks of your district, but also for the state of Illinois.
Yeah, well, I've had the honor for the last 2 years now of being one of the leaders from the House of Representatives negotiating our state budget. So the House negotiates with the Senate, with the governor's office. And my focus in those negotiations has really been how can we make deeper investments in the services that people need, especially in this time when the federal government is pulling back, cutting services, harming people, coming into our communities, and putting our neighbors under threat. How can we invest in those vital services without raising taxes on working people? Our tax system is already one of the most unfair tax systems in the country. We ask lower and middle class people to pay much more than we ask from the folks at the very top. So how can we change that? How can we make our tax system more fair so that everybody pays their fair share and that we can take care of everybody in our community? And I would say in this year's budget, we made some real progress in that direction. We increased funding for K-12 education, for healthcare, especially for the most vulnerable. We created this new program called the FRESH program in Illinois, which is $70 million of assistance for people who get kicked off their SNAP benefits because of these federal changes. They added these work requirements. A lot of people have lost their food assistance. And what our folks who work with those people would say is that many of them are actually going to be able to get back on SNAP. But it's a matter of the paperwork is challenging and they need some help to demonstrate that they're working or volunteering or doing all the things they need to do to be eligible. So the state is now going to fill in 2 months of food assistance for those folks when they lose their benefits.
Yeah, It's
Oh, go ahead.
No. I'm sorry, Representative. You and our legislature, the Democratic part of our legislature, really has. I know that people may say I'm being a homer in this, but I don't really care. The legislator, I don't care. The governor, the lieutenant governor, all our team.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Chicago is the big city. We're the daddy or big mom in the Midwest. We're working hard to do what you just said, which is to make things as right as possible for as many people as possible. I don't see any reason why we can't have an economy that works for everyone. And you've been very unapologetic about that, and then leading into legislation that says we have to have an economy that's for everyone. If we don't, then we are not even going to making America great again, to use the Trump, whatever, is insane. Because you can't do that if everybody in America is not able to have not just a seat at the table, but, a couple of seats.
Yeah. And I think just about everybody knows that this economy isn't working for most of us, right? I mean, it's not a surprise. We live it every day.
Yeah.
It costs more. We're not making enough. And it's very obvious that the economy is working for a very small set of people who are in the Trump circle or who are at the very top of the pile, and they're taking advantage of us. They're jacking up prices, making money at our expense, and they're doing great. And I think that that's wrong, and it's broken, and everybody knows it's broken. In all of our guts, we know something's rotten with the way this is working, and it's got to be done differently.
Did you see the testimony or the hearing with Kevin Warsh, who's a new Fed chair, talking? He was asked a question by Senator Elizabeth Warren. Basically, she was trying to pin him down. Look, dude, did you get $100 million check or not? And then Did you get it? He wouldn't. He tried to, you know how he's tap dancing. Listen, I'm gonna say this, and this is good. I can say this with you, and we can have some fun with it. There's some people who may not have been stereotypically good dancers, but they're dancing their behinds off right now in Washington. I'm sorry, but I'm like, dang, dude, you got some moves, but they're not answering the question. And she was asking him, "Did you get a check or not? Did you get a check or not?" He kept tap dancing around it, which to me says the obvious, Representative, is that you got a check, dude. Right. And in the face of people, these are the same folks that are saying, but listen, we can't keep SNAP benefits on play. And we can't, wow, we can't raise taxes, y'all. If we raise taxes, that's going to But the hypocrisy in that moment, when I saw that, I was like, wow, this dude is tap dancing around a question. Just say you got the check. Right. I mean, yeah, I got the check, but I'm here to do the job. Why wouldn't that have been an easier thing to do than look like a fool? Yeah, I got the check, Senator Warren, but I'm here to do the job for the American people. Boom, done. Kinda.
Yeah. I just think the level of self-dealing, aside from all the other horrors that are coming out of Washington, just the way that they're normalizing the idea that government is just a cash cow, and if you can get your hands on it, take as much money as you can and run.
Run out the door, man.
It is. It's wild. And I know we say this over and over again, but any one of these stories would have been like an administration-ending scandal in any other administration, Joe Biden or Barack Obama. I mean, heaven forbid Barack Obama, right? Like,
hey, I'll be honest with you. If George Bush had this kind of craziness going on, Bush too. I mean, not a president I was a fan of on a lot of levels for obvious reasons, but he would have been getting toasted. Yeah. I mean, let's just be honest about. I think. I mean, we had the war. Let's be honest. That was a big enough of a problem, and the economy at large, but. The kind of dealings, to your point, the self-dealings that are going on with the administration and the cabinet members, Bush did not have just an arm's length of people that were doing that. And then because here's what you're dealing with, and I'm not telling you what you already know, is the trickle-down that is the negative, quote, part of trickle-down. And that's how you as a state representative are having to navigate that. And that's why I got to give you your props, because here in our state legislature, you guys have really just done a phenomenal job of making sure that things are right.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that, and I think this is like both the challenge and the opportunity for the progressive movement in Illinois and around the country, right, is that we've faced 50 years of rhetoric about how government is bad and inefficient and the problem, and that the private sector is the way to fix the problems of government. We got to privatize and get government out of the way. And now we have a government that is just brazenly and openly corrupt and harming our neighbors, right? Taking people's food benefits away, driving down our streets and picking our neighbors up off the streets en masse. And we have work to do to show people that government can be a force for good in their lives. And in fact, that government is the only force powerful enough to take on the giant private companies who are running our world, right? The only people who can stand up to the Elon Musk and the Jeff Bezos of the world, the only institution in our society that has enough power to stand up to those guys is government, is all of us coming together collectively. And I think, at its best, our movement shows people that government can really be a force for good and is the only force that's on their side. And that's our obligation. And I think, as a legislator, when I think about what bills we're working on, what policies we're trying to advance, it's all in the service of that objective, like showing people that government is on their side and that it works and it's effective. And what's really inefficient and corrupt and difficult to navigate and use is the private sector. Like, man, have you ever tried to get a refund for a flight? You ever tried to deal with Comcast? Like, man, those guys are the
right. And you sit back sometimes and go, wait a minute, there's got to be a way to navigate, to control the behavior that I just got from that private entity. So, Representative, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we may talk about that a little bit more, but I want to talk a little bit about ICE, and I want to talk a little bit about civil rights and inclusion. 773-763-9278 is the number. You are listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our good friends up in Minnesota, the progressive voice of Minnesota, which is AM 950. I'm Richard Chu, speaking with Illinois Representative Will Guzzardi of the 39th District. We'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views. I'm Richard Chu. If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Illinois State Representative from the 39th District, Will Guzzardi. Always great to have the representative with us. He is one of our leading voices in the state, and I won't mess with him and say some of those future ambitions in terms of bigger and all that, but he's doing a great job. Let our listeners know, just as a reminder, folks here in the state know, but the folks that listen from other parts of the country, where is your district located in the city of Chicago? Give folks kind of a little bit of a roadmap.
It's on the northwest side of the city. It's a majority Latino district. It covers parts of Bucktown and Logan Square, Hermosa, and Belmont-Cragen, and a little bit of Avondale. So it's like kind of halfway between downtown and O'Hare Airport along the Blue Line. Got it.
So with that, the next question I wanted to ask you, or part of our conversation, is how you and your neighbors are dealing with ICE. Yeah. And we knew how crazy it was back in the early part of the year. We've seen things in other parts of the country. We saw what just went down in Maine. We saw the other person get killed in Texas. How are you navigating? How are your constituents? How are you guys rolling together to make sure that we are protected there?
Well, it's really scary. And in the fall, it was a big showy thing, right? They made this big announcement. They were coming to Chicago. They were very visible. They were in our communities in a very visible way, and we all kind of organized and pushed back on it. ICE activity has ramped back up in the last couple of months in our community, but it's much quieter. It's not the big splashy operation. It's, black cars and guys jumping out and grabbing people off the street corners. Back in the fall, like I would take my kid to our neighborhood park, and he's almost 3, so he was 2 at the time. He looked up and he was like, "Helicopter, Daddy, helicopter!" He's a little kid, he's excited to see a helicopter, but it's this helicopter flying low in straight lines back and forth above our just above our neighborhood, surveilling our neighbors. Like, it's exciting to our kid. But I looked around the park and I was like, something's different about the park today. It's all white people. Like, our park is usually very diverse, but all of the Latino families stayed at home. And it's because our communities are, being deliberately terrorized by our own government. And there have to be consequences for these people. When we control the reins of power again, and we passed a law in Illinois to allow Illinois residents to sue these federal agents if they violate our civil rights, but there's only so much we can do as a state because it's federal government stuff. So when we control the federal government again, man, these people have to face consequences for what they've done. And in the meantime, we're staying organized, and we learned from the experience in the fall. We've built a really robust rapid response network that, when something happens, it goes out on the chat, volunteers come to have eyes on it. We alert people in the community. There's ICE activity. We know the plates of the vehicle or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then afterward, we do canvassing around the area where the ICE activity happened to try to, be in touch with family members or community members, make sure folks have what they need. If a family just lost their main provider, right, their main source of income just got snatched up, like the rest of the family who's still here needs a lot of help and support. So we want to find them and connect them to resources in the community. So I would say that part of it has been really incredible to witness, the way that people have showed up, volunteered. I would say also that we have fewer volunteers now than we did in the fall, and it's because it's not as visible. When it was in the news every day, like, people were saying, what can I do to jump into their chairs to be a part of the solution? And now, because it's a little quieter, I think folks aren't quite as aware of it. So it's a good opportunity for me to say on the radio, like, this is happening and we need all hands on deck to protect our neighbors.
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded us of that. There's an immigration attorney in Plano that we have on the show every month. Her name is Kate Lincoln Goldfinch. And if you want me to make a connection with you and her, I will. She's been great. And she's been doing stuff all over the country, obviously based in Texas. But one of the things that she alerted us to about 60 days ago, she said, Richard, it's quieter, but it's still going on in some very crazy ways. And literally, we had her on last week, right the day after the shooting of the man in Texas, the murder of the man in Texas. And I kid you not, the next day is when the main garbage went down with that person being killed. And so, it's still happening, but it's quieter. And the downside of it being quieter is that we don't know about it. And to your point, to connect the dots, folks are kind of, it's just human nature that kind of backed away because, you see it, you want to get activated and go do something. So I appreciate you reminding us, and thank you for being on to talk about the importance for folks all over the country. Stay ever aware of what's going on. And if you're going out to an event this weekend with all the weather changes and the smoke and all that, be uber minded, or clear on what you're doing. But yeah, still stay involved. Stay plugged in is what our representative's trying to say. Talk to us a little bit about your coffee and conversation events that you do, and what's that yielding for the great state representative.
All right, I'm going to get a little philosophical with you maybe, but when I was in college, my degree was in translation, and I think about a big part of my job being translation. That government, state government in particular, it happens in its own kind of language of bills and lobbying and legislative stuff. And that Springfield talk is totally incomprehensible to most regular people, right? So I feel like my job as a translator is twofold. On the one hand, I have a responsibility to take what's going on in Springfield and communicate it to my constituents in a way that they can understand, like, here's what your state government is up to right now. And then it works in the reverse too, where the needs of our community are often kind of incomprehensible to the Springfield folks, right? And so I feel like I have the role as a translator in the other direction too, of saying, being able to hear from my community what's going on, what the pressures are, what the needs are, and translate that into bills and policy that we can take to Springfield. So when I'm not in the legislature, we do a lot of work trying to hear from our constituents in lots of different forums about what's going on, about what they want me to be doing, about the issues that matter to them. We have big town hall meetings. I go out to community meetings that are being held, but we also like to have these coffee and conversations where we'll just post up at a coffee shop, open a tab, and folks can come through and tell us what's on their mind. And these discussions are just always terrific. We get a mix of people of ages and backgrounds, and people have all kinds of different ideas. But what I love about it is that two folks who might have showed up for very different reasons will be like, oh yeah, that thing. And also, by the way, and they'll engage with conversation amongst each other.
Yeah.
When they came to talk to me about something, all of a sudden everyone's talking to each other, and we're just having this conversation. It's really wonderful.
Karen Byrne, who was on before you, she's the host of True Blue Politics podcast, and she writes some great articles on Substack. She's a friend of the show. She was out at Broadview, and she's done a number of things to help folks in that space. But one of the things that she just tried to do is with her Coffee Clutch group, they get together and kind of do the same thing. She's not a politician, obviously, but she's one that's helping people make the connection. So it's neat to see that your interpreter skills have had an overlay into politics. So how can folks find you, Representative? How can they get involved with the great work that you're doing for us here in Illinois?
Well, you can find us at repguzzardi.com, repguzzardi.com. We're on all the typical social media platforms. Our office is at 3001 North Central Park Avenue in Chicago, right at the corner of Central Park and Milwaukee. And yeah, we would love to hear from your listeners or anybody who wants to participate in the work that we're doing. And yeah, really grateful to have the opportunity to chat with you this morning.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad we were able to get it done. And I appreciate you taking some time to hang out with us. So we'll have it. We'll do this again. We'll have you back on. I know you guys have got a lot going on with the state legislature, but I'm proud of what you're doing. I say that respectfully. I'm proud because, we've got a great team here in Illinois. So thank you for all your hard work, Representative, and look forward to having you back.
Likewise.
All right. Talk to you soon. Be safe.
Yep.
Let's take a quick break, guys. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM, 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our good friends up in Minnesota, AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. When we come back, we will be talking with someone that's going to give us some thoughts and some ideas about how to better navigate the world of digital politics, digital marketing, digital conversations, and maybe we'll learn a few things. So get your notebooks out. We'll be talking with Danielle Butterfield, President and Executive Director of Priorities USA. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu, and here we are. Thanks to Illinois Representative Will Guzzardi for hanging out with us this morning. He's one of those leading voices that's really getting it done on a state level, and you guys know that my feeling and belief is local affects state, state affects federal, federal affects state, state affects local. We have those connected dots are so incredibly important, and in that conversation is something that we all have got to embrace as our responsibility to do better, grow our party, bigger tent, but be moving in a direction that's similar. I think about a little bit of science here, physics, math. Moving in one direction is really powerful. That's why snowball rolling downhill. You just got to get out of the way or get gobbled up. And I think that right now, one of the things that our next guest is going to try to help us through a little bit is how we do a better job, a more efficient job of messaging and using digital platforms to do that. Danielle Butterfield, Danielle, I said this earlier, it's Danielle, I know it is, but Daniel and Danielle are so phonetically close. You got to get that right. But she is the executive. Everybody does it. I know. It's the executive director of Priorities USA. Good morning, Danielle, and welcome to Choose Views.
Thank you so much for having me. The other day, someone wrote on my coffee cup Danyell, and I was like, "Yeah, that works."
That's actually, you can't get that one wrong. Yeah, because
No.
I've got a dear friend, and her name is Danielle, and but when you're saying it to someone, it's easier than when you're like reading it. So, Danielle
Totally.
Butterfield, welcome to Choose Views. I have followed you for a while, and when I have a moment where I'm like, yeah, that's what we should be doing. So talk about Priorities USA. Talk about your work there, and you've been there for a minute, but you have now had this role for a couple of years as the executive director. Help us out.
Yeah. Totally. So I joined the Priorities team in 2017, hot off of working on the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016, where, there's a million reasons that we can point to for why we lost that election. But one of the most clear reasons that people were able to point to right away is just how little Democrats overall spent on digital compared to Republicans, compared to how much we invest on television, et cetera. So Priorities, which was, founded as a more presidential focused super PAC, got some funding to kind of stay open and engage in the midterm elections that year and really figure out, why don't Democrats spend more online? What's happening here? So that's when I joined the team. It was a really exciting question to be able to dig into. We ran a bunch of really awesome programs. And I think what eventually became the ethos of Priorities is we're still anchored as a presidential election, but we're really using the midterm elections as an opportunity to grow and innovate. And to your earlier point, really use local elections to learn more and get better at how we communicate with voters. I think there's actually a lot more that national elections can learn from local elections. It doesn't always have to be the inverse. And so that's where we stand today. We are laser focused on 2028, even though the work that we are doing is really through the lens of the midterms in 2026. We are 100% full steam ahead on how can we do everything we can right now to prepare for the 2028 election.
2026 is right here, but the thing that, and this is a statement and kind of a question rolled into this, Danielle. The midterms are obviously what's the big prize right now, and then of course the distance focus is 2028 and how that is what's going to impact every single person on the planet, in my opinion. But to that end, Danielle, one of the things that I'm hearing, and I'm hearing it from people like Representative Will Guzzardi, who we just had on, is some old school political ways of working are working when it comes to local politicians getting elected in local elections, statewide elections, if you will, that are the state legislatures. They're saying that some of the old school things are working, and then integrating some of the more future, or I shouldn't say future, the future's now, digital platforms. But door knocking is still something that they are strong in their work in. And I've heard so many people say to me, Richard, the reason we won this state election is because we knocked on more doors. We got together with more people. We had those day-to-day conversations. We had those coffee conversations that he talked about. And so my question is, how do we integrate that into the digital conversation so that we gain, but we don't lose? Do you know what I'm asking you?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, we don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater when we talk about innovation. I think at the end of the day, when we talk about innovation, we're mostly talking about how can we do a better job of listening to what voters need and what they're telling us that they care about, and how can we use the internet as the largest focus group available to us to really have a better finger on the pulse of what voters are telling us that they want to hear. Smart politicians that are using kind of tactics that are tried and true are ultimately politicians that are really good at listening to their voters and to their constituents. And so I think we're basically just trying to take that same playbook and modernize it for the year 2026. We don't have to throw away, tried and true tactics, as long as we're bringing a digital lens to how we're doing that work.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you on that, and thank you for helping us with that. How does that get done? Oh, I mean, you and I both know we come up with great ideas. We know that they make sense in our brain, and the people that are in our, we all live in our own little circle. How do we actually make that happen in your observation?
Totally. So that's actually like a huge focus that Priorities has this cycle is, with the surge of AI and democratization of, access to data that AI is providing people. a lot of people can build new solutions to new problems and do it at scale. And I think what Priorities is really focused on is we're building a bunch of data and tools and research, but we're really keened in on adoption and making sure that people are actually using what we are building. It's why our tech department has a parallel political / training / partnership department that is out there really taking a temperature of the progressive ecosystem. Where are people at? What questions do they actually have? I don't want to build tools that are, helping people to answer questions that they're not even asking in the first place. So I think we're really trying to walk and chew gum as far as like thinking ahead, challenging the party, thinking about where we think the media ecosystem is going to be 10, 20 years from now, but then recognizing that we've got partners that are spending money in the midterm elections that are right in front of us. How do we help them make smarter decisions? I think that's really our bread and butter and kind of what makes us unique as an entity.
One of the things that is always the question right now in our politics, and I see it more with, we have to focus on our team. We don't need to focus on what the Republicans are doing, other than if they're doing something that's successful, what can be learned from it, and then we adopt it to work inside of what our political message is. If there are some things that you would say, and then I don't like to give the other side credit, but learn from what they might be doing that's working. I think that's good for all of us. What would be a couple of things that you see that the Republicans have done? And let's go backwards. Let's go maybe back to 16 a little bit, 20, 24, and say on a national level, this is some stuff that we can pull from and adopt into what we're doing to have a better message. Or better adoption.
Totally. Yeah. I appreciate your framing of the question, because I often think Democrats look at what Republicans do and think that it's our job to just replicate and copy them. And those tactics work. I think every time we talk about how much Republicans are spending online, that is the surefire way to get people to pay attention to how much we should be spending online as a Democratic Party. But I like to really zero in on tactically on what they're doing and better understand how we can learn from them more so than just copy them. And we got to have our own strategy as a party, or we're just that's the end of the game. But I think one of the things that I do want to go back to 2016, but let me quickly start with 2024, because I think it's really central to a lot of the work that we're focused on right now. The predominant ad that the Republicans ran in 2024 was the Kamala is for they, them ad. When you ask people kind of in the aftermath of 2024, and when we asked voters in particular, like, what did Republicans message to you about? That was their answer. It was a very resonant ad that broke through and had a lot of stickiness to it, right? It wasn't the kind of ad that people just scrolled right past. It's the kind of ad that people stopped and watched, and they're like, oh yeah, like that resonates with me. Which should be the goal.
So let me just dive in, not to interrupt you, but for more curiosity,
sure.
What is it about that ad that you think worked? Because some people obviously, people didn't say that was correct. So you know what I'm trying to say? What was it that people go, oh yeah, that's right, or I can get with that, and then vote for Trump? Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I think part of it was like what I was going to say is that ad didn't come from a poll. They didn't run the script of that ad in a battery of messages and it didn't rise to the top. That ad came from a tweet where people saw the ad. It's going to stand for me, not for someone else. And so I think our point of view is that they are gleaning their messages and their best practices from the internet, and really, like I said earlier, using the internet as a focus group to understand what's going to stick, what's going to break through. Whereas I think the Democratic Party is still really like focused on what's going to poll well. That doesn't have to be our only means of understanding what's going to work. And in fact, I think our point of view is that it's really limiting. We can understand what polls well, but we also have to understand what's going to do well online. There's a tone. There's there's just layers to human communication and messaging that you're not able to pick up on in a vacuum laboratory environment. So I think that's one kind of area that I think we have a lot of room to grow. And I think what Priorities is doing is really turning that into a process. How do we actually give, say, a digital director the tools they need to go into a polling conversation and say, okay, I get that the One Big Beautiful Bill, the thing that continues to poll really well is the Medicaid cuts. But and this is a real example, the thing that we are seeing time and time again is that when people are posting about the One Big Beautiful Bill, the comment sections are filling up with people talking about surveillance and the fact that this bill funds ICE continuing to surveil people. That's the thing that's sticking. That's the thing that creators want to talk about. That's the thing that has resonance, that should give us some sort of signal that maybe we can talk about Medicaid to some audiences, but perhaps there's another path that we can go down here, that I think that the internet data is really affording us the ability to see those signals and explore them with more depth. So that's like the big lesson that I think I like to take from Republicans is they're listening to more sources than we are. And I think at the high level, to go back to 2016, like they're willing to take more risks than we are. I think our donors are quite conservative and they want to see that things work and they want to make sure that there's ROI, which I appreciate. I think there's a lot of really good intention behind that. But at the end of the day, we're working on an internet that is moving faster than the speed of light. We have to be able to take risks, or we're going to just keep falling behind.
Yeah, and does that mean then, real quickly before we go to this quick break, does that mean that we approach the donors differently who are funding the messaging, wherever the messaging is going, that we approach them differently and say, listen, the way we've done it in the past did not work, or it did not work in its entirety for the goal that we set out. So we need you to be prepared that we're going to go in we're going to hold on to shore, but we're going to go out a little bit further and take a little bit deeper risk. Is that kind of how we should message that to the donors and the folks that are funding these types of efforts?
Yeah, I mean, every donor is different. I think we have to meet these donors where they are and based on what they need. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think that's one of our big headlines. We had a big political story that ran earlier this year that it was like the cult of the quants needs to be freed, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't we can't latch onto that as the only means of understanding what's going to work. Trying new things has to be part of our culture, or we're going to keep falling behind.
When we come back from this break, I want to talk a little bit about the quant debate that will help people understand what you're talking about there. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I am talking with Danielle Butterfield of the Priorities USA. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. If you are just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu, and we are talking with Danielle Butterfield, who is the Executive Director of Priorities USA. Helping us kind of connect the dots when it comes to Democrats have great message. We've got great people. Our ideas are better, as I say all the time. Now let's convey them in a way to everybody that should be voting for us. Let's get those 89 million people who did not vote in the last national election off the sidelines and in the game. And she's of the mindset that some of the ways that we've been doing it just don't get it done. And the way to get it done, or ways to do better at getting it done, are to improve the way in which we message from a digital perspective and talk to the people who are on the ground in the digital world that are getting some of that content. Danielle, thanks for being with us this morning. Talk about the quant debate, what that means. Help people understand that, and then let's how do we turn that into a positive? What we learned from that into a positive thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I like to think about this debate, because ultimately, like I like to think about my job as marketing first, right? We're trying to market a new idea to people and get them to change their behavior. The corporate marketing world is spending millions, if not billions of dollars a year on branding themselves, but 90+% of corporate marketers are ultimately also trying to sell you something, right? Like, let's take Nike as an example. They're spending millions of dollars to make you think that Nike is an awesome brand that you should be engaging with. Everyone knows "just do it" as their motto, and you have associations with the brand. That's branding, but ultimately they're also selling you shoes, and they get to use shoe sales as the ultimate metric of whether their branding campaigns are successful. Democrats and the work that we do in the persuasion and mobilization space, there isn't a metric of sales that we get to track. We are ultimately just trying to change hearts and minds. We have one action, which is whether someone voted for us or not on election day. We, that window is slightly expansive now that we have early voting, but we don't have conversions that we get to track every single day to understand it if our messaging is breaking through or not. So I think that the question of, is my advertising or are my dollars working, is really hard to measure, and we are really alone on that island, and we don't get corporate advertisers to compare notes with. So I think that Democrats jump to surveys as a means of, I'm going to survey the people who saw my ads, and I'm going to survey the people who didn't see my ads, and I'm going to set that up as a treatment and control so that I can control, making sure that people who saw my ads are similar to the people who didn't. And that's going to be the means of understanding if my persuasion campaign was effective. But there's just, and I think there's a lot of value in that. That's how the entire medical industry operates and understands if their investments are worthwhile. But it tends to take a really academic lens. There's a lot of rigor to the way you structure those kinds of experiments. And we just, unfortunately, there's a lot of times where we have to move faster than that. And there needs to be more balance, I would say. We need to be able to measure the effects where possible. And that's kind of the mantra that Priorities takes. We're setting up control groups where we're running experimentation and doing survey-based measurement wherever possible. But there are times and places where we just have to take risks, and we have to. I'll give you an example of a campaign that we're running right now in Ohio. Our theory of the case there is that any voter is kind of always 2 clicks away from right-leaning content, especially on YouTube. The YouTube algorithm is really gross in a lot of ways.
Did you say 2 clicks away?
Talk 2 clicks away.
Help us out with that.
Just like you're on YouTube, you're watching a video of at your leisure. You skip to the next video, and all of a sudden you're kind of on a Breitbart video without even really realizing that's what you intended to do. And I think we have a lot of evidence that happens quite frequently, and it happens much more frequently with young men. And so I think our theory of the case is we got to interrupt that flow. We got to change you. We got to stop you from getting to that right-leaning content. And we can do that pretty easily with just running ads that disrupt that process. And I think this campaign that we ran in Ohio really proved that when we ran ads about John Husted and the First Energy scandal, it caught people's attention such that they opened up a new tab and started searching for more information about John Husted.
Yeah.
That's not a survey result telling me that people were persuaded. We're not getting a result showing I was moved towards John Husted or away from John Husted, but it is telling me that I'm able to interrupt that persuasion flow, which I think is a really helpful marketing signal that should be, motivating kind of how we think about whether our campaigns are working or not. It's just, I think the world wants it to be really black and white, and it's unfortunately not.
As our country should be, less of or more of, depending on in terms of a more broad, diverse message. So to Danielle, I'm sitting here, and I have a lot of professors on this show, and I'm grateful to that. And I'm sitting here just going, wow, what we just all learned. I mean, that's why I had to interrupt you for a second and say 2 clicks away. So first of all, we got to have you back to talk more about this, because I want to facilitate dotted line, how do we get better from the people who do certain things that are subject matter experts, and then take that to our specific and then broader Democratic Party so that we win. I'm about winning. I love to win, and win meaning that everybody on the floor, everybody in the stadium is winning. And that's why we're here. We want to be. So we want to make sure we get you back on. But let me ask you this question. You talked about the algorithmic, these are my words, sort of the interpretation, algorithmic behavior. Boom. Mm-hmm. Somebody's watching this in Ohio, and then suddenly they're 2 clicks away from, some garbage in my mind, versus how we interrupt that. So is it costly to create the tool that causes the interruption? Does that make sense?
No, it's not costly. It's just a change in how you want to think about marketing and advertising. I think our worldview is that the Democratic Party primarily uses field and television-based targeting tactics to reach voters online. We're using geography and the voter file as the primary means of reaching people, when I think Priorities is of the opinion that behavioral targeting, whether you're buying a home, looking for childcare, looking for information on whether your lettuce is safe, is much more indicative of whether you are the right voter for us to be reaching out to in that moment than anything else that could be available to us via a voter file. And I think that's actually the premise behind the campaign that we announced last month, which is called Prologue. That campaign is attempting to really define JD Vance, Marco Rubio ahead of the 2028 campaign.
Say that
we
again.
Believe that
Go back and say that again. I want to make sure people heard that clearly.
Yeah, so priorities, like I said, we're really laser focused on 2028, and so we think there's no better time like the present than to get going and start to define our eventual opposition. We're gonna be in a new era of politics where Donald Trump is not going to be on the ballot. I don't think we have that muscle memory quite yet, and so we think it's really important to get in there early and define our opposition, especially knowing that the Democratic Party is going to be so laser focused on this upcoming primary, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be an awesome contest of new ideas, but Priorities is going to take on the responsibility of making sure that we also, walk and chew gum and define our opposition at the same time. So that campaign is kicking off right now because we think we need a long window to better understand what are the biggest vulnerabilities against JD Vance, Marco Rubio, and whoever else decides to run. And we're really going to be using the internet to listen and understand and hear feedback from voters in real time of what is sticking and what is breaking through.
Thank you for saying that, Danielle, because one of the things, and I'm not a digital expert, I have a certain amount of marketing prowess. But
don't say that. Everyone, I hate that phrase. That's my number one pet peeve.
All right, I'm going to change it up for you. I'm growing into a better digital person. How about that? Is that?
We love it.
I'll take my positive side, and I mean that. But here's the thing that I want to say. I'm always looking at the candidates who are failing, struggling, are the easiest targets. And I've been saying for the longest time that we as a Democratic Party have got to stop doing it just like right now. We got to be thinking about what we know is coming. I said this about Susan Collins. We should have been tagging her a couple of years ago, knowing that she was going to be up for re-election in this 2026 season, with all that she's done to cause harm to women and others in the country. She's a bigger threat. And so I've been saying that most recently since the Plattner stuff, Democrats need to be tagging her right now in this short window that we have. We need to be tagging Marco Rubio for the things that he's been flip-flopping on for 10 years. And to your point, so how we do it, you've got the muscle and the tools and the knowledge. That is such an important message to get out to Democrats. Let's start. We know it's coming. Let's stop fighting against Donald Trump. He ain't going to run again. He can't. We know that it's all bluster that I'm running for the 2028. It's a distraction from the things that we really need to be focused on, which is who actually is going to be eligible to run. So, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's really important that we're able to get going on this work now, but it's also not in our nature to, get going on a campaign focused on 2028 while we're in the middle of 2026. I think our team was frankly quite nervous to announce that campaign because we were nervous we were going to get negative feedback of why are you talking about 28 when we have this really important midterm right in front of us. But I think it was really important to me and to our leadership team that we show the party that we are able to do both and that we are honestly able to weave in work that defines JD Vance and Marco Rubio in the context of everything that's happening in 2026.
So much material. Because they're giving us so much material right now.
No, the team is having a lot of fun with it, honestly. Like not having to think about Donald Trump and getting to think about new candidates that we're running against. Just like it's not to say it's a breath of fresh air, but it is definitely giving the team some new creative ideas. I'll say that.
Listen, Danielle, I'm in. I'll help out however I can, and if one of those ways is to have you back on our show, I promise you we will do that because what you're saying needs to be heard, and I want to do everything I can to make sure our audience across the country knows about the work that you guys are doing. Danielle, how can folks find you? How can they get involved if they choose to?
Yeah, so priorities.org is our one-stop shop for everything that we just talked about. If you want to learn more about our tools, our trainings, all of our investments, that's a good place to start. We're also at Priorities USA on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I still don't call it X. And I am at like Butterfield on those same properties. Mine is TikTok. I don't really have a personal presence on TikTok quite yet, but let's see where we go.
Haven't gone down that path just yet. Danielle, it's been a pleasure to have you with us this morning. Thanks so much. Stay safe.
Thank you so much.
And we'll do this again. We'll do this again soon.
Sounds great.
All right. Be well.
Let's do it.
Talk to you soon.
You too. Bye.
Guys, stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. And remember to take a deep breath and make your life count. I'm Richard Chu, and we'll see you next week.